Just keep him calm and stay out of the way, Julian Croft says, the words clipped, dismissive. He doesn't look at Amara, his eyes fixed on the panoramic view of the city sprawling 60 floors below. This is a billion-dollar conversation, not a nursing home. Amara Vance gives no outward sign she has heard him. Her world is not the gleaming mahogany table or the figures in sharp, $1,000 suits reflected in its polished surface. Her world is the man sitting at the head of it all. Arthur Croft, the patriarch, the founder, a titan of industry now held captive in a body that has begun to betray him. His hands, once capable of signing deals that shifted markets, now rest on the table with a fine, persistent tremor. Her focus is a bubble of serene concentration in a room crackling with avarice and ambition. She stands slightly behind Arthur's custom chair, a silent sentinel in a simple navy blue dress that is as functional as it is invisible against the room's opulent backdrop. While Julian, his son and heir apparent, gestures with sharp, aggressive movements, outlining the final points of a hostile takeover, Amara's movements are fluid, economical. She straightens the cashmere shawl around Arthur's shoulders. She ensures his glass of water is within easy reach. Each action is precise, executed with a quiet grace that renders her part of the furniture. Would you endure this? To be present but unseen, essential but dismissed. Suddenly, a soft chime echoes through the room. It's not aggressive, but it's alien, a single resonant note that cuts through the drone of financial projections. A system test. The men around the table flinch. One curses under his breath, another shoots an irritated glare at the ceiling speaker. Julian's jaw tightens, furious at the interruption. But Arthur Croft jolts. His tremor intensifies, a violent shudder running up his arms. His eyes, clouded with the fog of his condition, dart around the room, wide with a primal fear. His breathing hitches, becoming shallow, rapid gasps. For him, the unexpected sound is not an annoyance, it is a threat, a crack in the carefully constructed reality that keeps the chaos in his mind at bay. "Dad, it's nothing," Julian snaps, his frustration boiling over. "It's just a test." But Arthur doesn't hear his son. He hears only the alarm bell of his own neurology. Before the gasp in his lungs can become a full-blown panic attack, Amara's hand is on his forearm. It is not a soft, placating touch. It is firm, solid, an anchor in a swirling sea. She leans close, her voice a low, steady murmur in his ear, inaudible to anyone else. It is not what she says, but the cadence of her voice, calm, rhythmic, predictable. A human metronome. The effect is instantaneous. The violent shudder in Arthur's hands subsides to his usual faint tremor. The frantic darting of his eyes ceases. He turns his head slightly, his gaze finding hers. A wave of recognition, of profound and absolute trust, passes between them. He takes a breath, a real one this time, deep and evening. The entire event from jolt to calm takes less than 5 seconds. Julian, having already turned his attention back to his presentation, misses it completely. The other executives, bothered only by the chime, have already forgotten it. They saw a caregiver tending to her charge. They saw a hand on an arm. They did not see a master practitioner of crisis de-escalation neutralizing a neurological event under extreme pressure. They did not see the quiet, formidable competence that held the most powerful man in the room together. Amara remains by his side, her hand resting gently on his shoulder, a silent, unacknowledged pillar of stability. The test was over, but the real alarm was yet to sound. The merger conversation resumes, thick with jargon and predatory smiles. Amara fades back into the woodwork, her brief, critical intervention already forgotten. An hour later, as the meeting breaks for a catered lunch, the pressure in the room shifts. A junior executive named Marcus, eager to ingratiate himself with Julian, bustles around, trying too hard to be useful. He grabs a heavy tray of crystal water glasses, swings around a corner too fast, and collides with a serving cart. The sound is a sickening crash of shattering glass. Water and ice spray across the Italian marble floor. Marcus freezes, his face a mask of horror. The executives recoil, annoyed and disgusted. Julian's face turns to thunder. "For God's sake, Marcus, get someone from facilities up here. Now." But facilities are 5 minutes away. The floor is a treacherous landscape of sharp, glittering shards and slick water directly in the path to the luncheon setup. The billion-dollar conversation has stalled, held hostage by a clumsy sycophant. Before Marcus can even stammer an apology, Amara is moving. She glides over to a discreet service closet she had identified the moment she first entered the room. Her movements are, as always, economical and purposeful. She doesn't run, she flows. She emerges a moment later not with a simple mop but with a specialized spill kit. It contains absorbent powder, a magnetic shard collector, heavy-duty gloves, and a squeegee with a rubber edge designed for delicate floors. While the executives stand around awkwardly, she works. She doesn't speak. She sprinkles the powder, which instantly congeals the water. She dons the gloves, sweeping the larger glass fragments into a dustpan with practiced efficiency. Then she runs the magnetic collector over the area, its soft hum pulling microscopic slivers of glass from the grout lines. In less than 2 minutes, the spill is gone. The floor is dry, safe, and spotless. She disposes of the materials in a sealed bag and returns the kit to the closet. She turns, expecting to be invisible again. But the room is silent. Everyone has been watching her. The sheer, quiet competence is an undeniable performance. Julian breaks the silence. He looks not at Amara but at the humiliated Marcus. See, even the help knows how to do a job properly. He turns to Amara, his voice dripping with condescension. Good, that's what you're here for. Would you tolerate this, having your expertise framed as the expected duty of a lesser role? Amara's face remains a polite, neutral mask, but her eyes are cold. She walks over to a small side table where her personal bag rests. From it, she pulls a small, worn, leather-bound journal. It's a simple thing, held shut by an elastic band, its edges softened with use. She opens it, clicks a pen, and makes a small, precise notation on a page filled with neat, compact script. The men see a diary, a place for grocery lists or private thoughts. They don't see a field manual, a log of observations and contingency plans. She is documenting the floor's poor acoustic insulation, which amplified the crash and distressed Arthur. She is noting the response time of the junior executive, the lack of immediate safety equipment, the emotional state of her patient throughout. Julian watches her, a flicker of suspicion in his eyes. "You are not to be taking notes on company meetings," he says, his voice low and threatening. "Your job is my father, nothing else. Remember your place." He mistakes her diligence for espionage, her professionalism for a threat. The luncheon is a tense affair. Julian closes his deal, the handshakes are stiff, and the victorious party departs. Only Julian, 2 senior board members, his father, and Amara remain in the vast boardroom, preparing to debrief. Arthur is tired, his energy depleted by the morning's stress. Amara is about to suggest they retire to his private suite when the sound returns. It is not the gentle chime from before. This is a piercing, continuous shriek, a raw, electronic scream that vibrates through the floor and rattles the crystal glasses left on the table. Red lights flash in stark, rhythmic pulses, painting the room in apocalyptic strobes. On the massive screen at the end of the boardroom, the Croft Innovations logo dissolves, replaced by 2 words in stark, white text: system-wide failure. Evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. For a full second, the room is frozen in disbelief. Then chaos erupts. The 2 board members, men in their late 60s, scramble from their chairs, shouting questions. Julian is already on his phone, barking at his head of security. What the hell is happening? Is it a fire? A threat? Get me answers. But the system is already failing. The phones are dead. The screen flickers and dies, plunging the room into the eerie glow of the emergency lights. The shriek of the alarm is relentless, a physical assault on the senses. The stakes are no longer monetary, they are primal. Survival. Arthur Croft is convulsing. The alarm, the flashing lights, the panic, it's a direct attack on his fragile state. He lets out a low, guttural moan, his hands clawing at his chest, his heart. "Dad," Julian shouts, finally dropping his phone. He rushes to his father's side, but his presence only makes it worse. Julian is part of the chaos, his frantic energy a fuel on Arthur's neurological fire. "Get his pills," one board member yells. "Call a doctor," shouts the other. They are useless, their wealth and power stripped away, leaving only two terrified old men. Amara is now locked into the vortex. Her primary directive, protect Arthur, has become infinitely more complex. She cannot just calm him, she must move him. She must navigate him through a building that is actively failing, surrounded by people whose panic is a contagious poison. She cannot withdraw. She cannot wait for instructions. Julian's authority has evaporated, replaced by the shrieking, absolute authority of the alarm. The public scrutiny of the boardroom has become a crucible. What would you do next? The world has narrowed to this single, urgent imperative: get him out. While the three executives create a panicked logjam, shouting over each other and pulling at the locked boardroom doors, Amara operates in a different reality. She moves with an unhurried, deliberate grace that is a stark rebuke to the surrounding frenzy. She ignores the men. She ignores the doors. Her first action is to kneel beside Arthur's chair, placing herself in his direct line of sight, creating a focal point in the disorienting sea of red light. She opens her leather journal, which she had slipped into her dress pocket. She doesn't read it. The pages are a formality. The protocols are etched into her muscle memory. Her hand goes to a small, unassuming leather pouch attached to her bag. It is not a purse. It is a meticulously organized go-kit. From it, she produces a single foil-wrapped pill, a fast-acting beta blocker, and a small pocket-sized water bottle. She administers the medication with a calm efficiency, her movements sure and steady despite Arthur's tremors. Next, she pulls out a pair of industrial-grade, noise-dampening headphones and slips them gently over his ears. The shriek of the alarm is muted to a dull, manageable hum. The transformation is remarkable. The wild fear in Arthur's eyes begins to recede. His breathing, while still ragged, loses its desperate, panicked edge. Across the room, a young woman stands frozen by the serving station. It's Chloe, a junior administrative assistant who was assigned to clear the lunch service. She is barely 25, terrified, and has been completely ignored by her superiors. But she sees everything. She watches Amara, not with the condescension of the executives, but with a wide-eyed, stunned awe. She sees a system at work. She sees a plan unfolding. Did you catch what she just did? It wasn't just comfort. It was a clinical, life-saving intervention performed in the middle of a disaster zone. Amara has secured her patient. A small, critical victory. She rises, her attention now turning to the larger problem: escape. Julian finally notices her. He sees his father, now strangely calm, wearing the heavy-duty headphones. He registers none of the skill involved, only the bizarre image. "What the hell are you doing?" he yells over the muffled alarm. "We have to get out of here, and you're playing dress-up with him." The small win, the reclamation of his father's stability, is immediately dismissed as a frivolous, time-wasting distraction. Amara meets Julian's furious gaze with a look of unshakable calm. She doesn't waste breath trying to explain. Instead, she turns her full attention back to Arthur. She takes his trembling hand in both of hers, her grip firm and reassuring. The sensory detail is anchoring, the warmth of her skin against his, the solid pressure of her hold. She leans in close, her lips near his ear, speaking just loudly enough to be heard through the headphones. Her voice is low and even. "Arthur, it's all right. We have a protocol for this. We've practiced this." Arthur looks at her, his mind struggling to push through the cognitive haze and the terror. He sees her face, the one constant point of safety in his chaotic world. His own breathing begins to subconsciously mirror hers, a phenomenon she has trained him on for months. It is a mirrored behavior, a biofeedback loop of trust. A flicker of lucidity sparks in his eyes. He squeezes her hand, his grip surprisingly strong. His voice, when it comes, is a shaky whisper, but it is clear. "Just like the fire drill at the lake house, right, Amara?" The words hang in the air between them, a testament to a shared history Julian knows nothing about. The fire drill at the lake house had been a terrifying reality, a gas leak in the middle of the night that had sent the staff into a panic. Amara, then only a few months into her employment, had single-handedly evacuated a sleeping Arthur, navigated him through the dark woods to a safe distance, and administered first aid to a cook who had been burned, all before the first responders arrived. That night, she had earned more than his trust. She had earned his faith. Julian hears his father's words and frowns, confused. The reference means nothing to him. But for Amara, it is everything. It is Arthur's way of saying, I remember, I trust you, lead the way. This is her emotional anchor. Her duty is not just to an employer, but to the man who has placed his life in her hands, who sees her worth when no one else does. The moral obligation is absolute. If you were there, would you step closer or stay silent? Amara knows she cannot fail him. She must get him through this, not because it is her job, but because their shared humanity demands it. With Arthur coherent and anchored, Amara stands and performs a swift, 360-degree scan of the environment. Her mind is a rapid-fire processor, filtering out the noise of the alarm and the panic shouts, focusing only on actionable data. The main doors are electronically locked, a standard security feature during a system failure. The emergency stairwell indicator is flashing an error code. Julian is frantically pointing towards a heavy fire door on the far side of the room. That way, it's a manual release. It has to lead to the west stairwell. Amara's eyes narrow. Something is wrong. She pulls out her leather journal again. The executives see a woman consulting her diary in the middle of a catastrophe. Chloe sees a professional accessing her data. Amara flips to a section in the back. On the page is a hand-drawn, meticulously detailed schematic of the 60th floor. It is a diagram she copied from the official building plans during her first week, a contingency she prepared for an event exactly like this. Her finger traces a path from the boardroom to the fire door Julian indicated. Her notes in the margin are small and neat. West stairwell, designated executive priority exit. Note, automated system seals all lower-level access points, floors 150 to create a negative pressure buffer in case of fire. Safe for top-down evac only. Traps anyone below. There it is. The trap. It is a feature, not a bug. A piece of brutal hierarchical design. The multi-million-dollar smart evacuation system was programmed to save the most important people first. In the event of a fire or threat, it would create a sealed, safe passage for the C-suite, but in doing so, it would turn the lower-level stairwells, where the support staff, cafeteria workers, and mailroom clerks were located, into a death trap. Going through that door wouldn't just be a dead end for them. It would seal the fate of hundreds of people below. Have you ever seen a rule, or in this case a system, used like a weapon? The only viable exit is the one no one is looking at, the oversized service elevator at the end of the corridor, designed for moving furniture and catering equipment. It operates on an independent hydraulic system, separate from the main elevator bank. It is slow, ugly, and not meant for executives. But it is their only way out that doesn't sacrifice lives. The choice is starkly framed. She can comply with Julian's panicked, authoritative command, follow the path of least resistance, and lead them all into a blocked route that endangers hundreds of unseen workers. Or she can resist, challenge the CEO in the midst of a crisis, and risk being physically restrained or fired on the spot, losing any chance to save Arthur at all. Amara strides directly into Julian's path, placing herself between him and the fire door. No, she says. The word is not loud, but it cuts through the noise with the sharp finality of a blade. Not that way. Julian stops, his face contorted with a mixture of rage and disbelief. Are you insane? Move. That stairwell is a trap, she says, her voice level, devoid of panic. The system seals the lower floors. We won't get out and we'll cut off the only escape for the staff below. We need to use the service elevator. It's on an independent circuit. Her explanation is concise, logical, and delivered with the authority of someone who knows, not someone who guesses. But Julian is incapable of hearing it. His mind, conditioned by years of absolute power, cannot process the idea that his caregiver, the woman he pays to be silent and invisible, could possess critical knowledge that he does not. Her competence is not a resource, it is insubordination. I am the CEO of this company, he seethes, his voice dangerously low. I know the damn building schematics. You are a caregiver. You will do as I say. His rationale is the oldest one in the world, the defense of a fragile ego. He shoves past her, grabbing the heavy manual release bar on the fire door. He puts his weight into it. The bar groans but doesn't budge. The electronic lock hasn't disengaged. The smart system has already sealed their fate, just as her journal predicted. The door is closed. Julian lets out a roar of pure frustration. He turns back to Amara, his eyes wild. He sees her not as a savior, but as the source of this failure, as if her speaking the truth had willed it into being. "Security," he bellows, though there is no one to hear. He grabs the arm of one of the board members. "Don't let her near the elevators." She's in shock. She's a liability. He effectively excommunicates her. He draws a line in the sand, placing her and his father on one side and the rest of them on the other. It is a moment of profound isolation. She offered the key, and he chose to remain in the cage, pulling everyone else in with him. What would you sacrifice to stay true? Amara watches him try the door again, a futile act of pride against engineering. She looks at the terrified faces of the board members who now eye her with suspicion. Then she looks down at Arthur, who is watching her, his trust unwavering. She has failed to convince them. The door is closed, both literally and metaphorically. In that moment of near despair, she makes a quiet vow. She would not let Julian's arrogance be Arthur's tomb. She would get him out, even if she had to do it alone. The air is growing thick. A faint, acrid smell of burnt plastic begins to seep into the room from a ceiling vent, a terrifying confirmation that the crisis is escalating. The panic, which had momentarily subsided into a stalemate, begins to rise again. Julian is now pulling senselessly at the fire door, his suit jacket torn. Amara turns away from the spectacle of his failing authority. She has one last option. It is not a frontal assault on his pride, but a flanking maneuver that bypasses him entirely. She walks over to Chloe. The young assistant is huddled near a credenza, trying to make herself small. Her face is pale with fear, but her eyes are watchful, intelligent. She is the only person in the room who saw Amara's competence for what it was. Amara kneels, entering Chloe's space with a calm that is almost hypnotic. "Chloe," she says, her voice soft but firm, forcing the young woman to meet her gaze. "I need your help. Can you be brave for 5 minutes?" Chloe, startled, can only nod, her eyes wide. Amara opens her worn leather journal. She flips past the medical notes, past the behavioral logs, to the very back section, contingencies. There, on a clean page, is another hand-drawn diagram, this one of the building's central security nexus 2 floors below. Arrows and annotations detail a specific sequence. It is the manual override for the service elevator's security lockout. She had spent a Saturday in the city planning office, cross-referencing public records with an old maintenance manual she'd found online. This is not a guess. This is her research. This is her evidence. "This is the override code for the service elevator," Amara says, holding the open journal for Chloe to see. The main security office is locked down, but there's a sub-level panel behind a fire extinguisher case in the east corridor, 2 floors down. The stairs next to the kitchen pantry are on a manual lock. You can get there. It is an insane request, a complex series of instructions delivered in a storm of noise and fear. But Amara doesn't deliver it with panic. She delivers it like a professor giving a lecture. She tears the page neatly from the journal. This is the handoff. This is the moment where her quiet, hidden preparation is about to become a public, undeniable action. She places the folded paper into Chloe's hand and closes the girl's fingers around it. "Go down the pantry stairs. Find the panel. Show this to the first security guard you find. Tell them it's a direct order from the 60th floor. Tell them Amara Vance sent you." Chloe looks from the paper in her hand to Amara's steady, determined eyes. This is where everything could flip. She sees not a caregiver but a commander. With another nod, no longer terrified but filled with a sudden, electrifying purpose, Chloe scrambles to her feet. She slips past the distracted executives and disappears through the indicated pantry door, entering the proving ground of the building's hidden corridors, carrying the single piece of paper that holds all their lives. 5 minutes pass. They feel like 5 years. The smell of smoke is stronger now, a tangible threat that coats the back of the throat. One of the board members is coughing, his face a ghastly shade of gray. Julian has finally given up on the fire door and is pacing like a caged animal, his authority in tatters. He has led them to a dead end. He glares at Amara, who stands calmly with Arthur, as if ready to blame her for the very air turning to poison. "This is your fault," he begins, his voice raspy. "If you hadn't wasted our time." Ding. The sound is soft, impossibly gentle against the ongoing shriek of the alarm, yet it commands the attention of the entire room. It is the sound of an elevator arriving. Every head snaps towards the far end of the corridor, to the brushed steel doors of the service elevator they had all ignored. The indicator light above it is a steady, reassuring green. The doors slide open with a quiet whoosh. Standing inside is Chloe. Her hair is disheveled, her face smudged with dust, but her eyes are bright with victory. Beside her stands a burly, uniformed security guard, his face grim with purpose. He holds a master keycard in one hand and a radio in the other. Chloe steps forward. She doesn't look at Julian. She looks directly at Amara. "Her plan worked," she announces to the room, her voice ringing with a newfound confidence. "The override code was correct. All floors are reporting in. This is the only safe way down." Did you feel that shift? It was the sound of a power vacuum being filled. The tectonic plates of the room's hierarchy groaned and then shattered. Julian's authority, built on title and volume, crumbled into dust. Amara's authority, built on quiet competence and irrefutable results, rose to take its place. The two board members who had been following Julian's lead now turn as one and look at Amara. They see her not as the help but as their only hope. "What do we do?" one of them asks her, his voice pleading. Amara doesn't hesitate. She gives a slight nod to the security guard, a silent acknowledgement of their new alliance. "One at a time," she says, her voice calm and clear, effortlessly commanding the space. "Chloe, you and Mr. Henderson go first. I'll send the rest down, then I'll follow with Mr. Croft." She is not shouting. She is not waving her arms. She is simply speaking, and the entire room is listening. She orchestrates the evacuation with the precision of a seasoned field commander, her quiet presence more powerful than Julian's rage-filled shouting ever was. Julian stands frozen, watching the scene unfold. He sees his subordinates, his peers, his father's colleagues, all turning to his father's caregiver for instructions and following them without question. He stares at her, his face a cocktail of shock, humiliation, and a dawning, terrifying respect. The woman he had tried to silence was now the only voice that mattered. The descent in the service elevator is slow, heavy, and silent, save for the muffled wail of the alarm. They emerge not into a pristine lobby, but into the organized chaos of the building's loading dock, the designated emergency collection point. Firefighters and paramedics swarm the area. Amara guides Arthur to a quiet corner, checks his vitals, and wraps him in a shock blanket. She has done her job. In the hours that follow, the story pieces itself together. A fire in the sub-level server room had triggered the catastrophic system failure. The evacuation system, just as Amara had predicted, had sealed the stairwells, trapping over 200 employees on the lower floors. It was Chloe's message, backed by the authority of Amara's name, that had triggered the manual override and allowed security to begin a full, building-wide evacuation through the service corridors. The initial reports credited her with preventing a tragedy of staggering proportions. 2 days later, Amara is summoned back to the Croft Innovations Tower. The building is quiet, scarred by the event but standing. She is led not to the boardroom but to Julian's private office. He looks different. The arrogant swagger is gone, replaced by a weary, hollowed-out look. He looks humbled. "They're calling you a hero," he says, his voice flat. He gestures to a chair. "The board has approved a substantial bonus. A thank you for your service. We'd also like to offer you a new position, Head of Corporate Risk and Contingency Planning. You can name your salary." This is the moment of restitution, the apology wrapped in a promotion, the offer of power, of a title, of a seat at the table she had been deemed unworthy to even stand near. Amara looks at him, her expression unreadable. She could accept. She could take the money, the title, the victory. She could savor the irony of becoming his superior in the very domain where he had mocked her, but she doesn't. "I'm a caregiver, Mr. Croft," she says, her voice quiet but firm. "That is my profession. My work is with your father." Julian looks confused. "But you saved the entire company. You deserve this." "What I deserve," Amara continues, leaning forward slightly, "is for you to understand why the company needed saving in the first place. You built a system designed to save men like you at the expense of people like Chloe. You filled a building with protocols that no one on the ground understood. You valued technology over people." She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. Her words are a clinical dissection of the corporate culture he created. "I don't want your money or your title," she says, making her choice, the choice for soft justice. "I want you to fix the system, for everyone, not just the people on the 60th floor." What does real justice look like here? Not a vengeful reversal, but a fundamental reform. She stands to leave. "I'm not a risk manager, Mr. Croft. I'm the person you call when the risk managers have failed." She leaves him there, alone in his vast office, the offer of a promotion hanging in the air. He is not left with an enemy, but with a proposal, a challenge, an opportunity to rebuild not just his company, but his own integrity. The stakeholders, Julian, the board, the entire corporate structure, are left to weigh her quiet, radical proposal. The board meeting a week later is not about profit margins or market share. It is about survival. Julian, chastened and clear-eyed, does not present a defense of the old system. He presents Amara's ultimatum as the only path forward. There is resistance, of course. Old guard executives balk at the idea of taking safety advice from a domestic employee. But the near catastrophe, the loss of their precious data center, and the looming threat of lawsuits from hundreds of employees are powerful motivators. The change, when it comes, is swift and decisive. A new company-wide policy is drafted and enacted within the month. It is officially named the Corporate Resilience Mandate, but everyone inside the company calls it by its real name, the Vance Protocol. It is a revolutionary document. First, it mandates that all future emergency systems and architectural plans must be reviewed and signed off on by a cross-functional safety council. Crucially, this council is required to have at least 50% of its members be non-executive staff, janitors, security guards, cafeteria workers, administrative assistants. The people who know the building's arteries, not just its boardrooms. Second, it scraps the expensive, simulation-based training for executives and replaces it with practical, quarterly, building-wide drills based on Amara's methods. These drills prioritize communication, ground-level problem-solving, and the protection of the most vulnerable, completely inverting the old top-down hierarchy. Third, and most importantly, it establishes a new, independent Office of Process Integrity, reporting directly to the board. Its sole function is to receive and act upon anonymous reports from any employee regarding safety flaws, procedural gaps, or ethical concerns, with ironclad whistleblower protection. It is a direct channel for the quietest voice to be heard without fear. This office prevents repeat harm by institutionalizing the act of listening. The head of operations, a stern but fair woman named Alina Vance, no relation, a fact that causes a brief, ironic smile to cross Amara's face when she hears, is tasked with its enforcement. Her first act is to send a company-wide memo announcing the protocol and its origins, explicitly crediting the foresight and courage of Miss Amara Vance, a member of our extended professional family. Would this change be enough in your workplace? The change begins not as a vague promise, but as a set of enforceable structural reforms. Resistance doesn't vanish overnight. There are grumbles and sneers in the executive washrooms, but the path to a safer, more equitable system has been irrevocably opened. Weeks turn into a month. The media buzz quiets down. The corporate world moves on. Amara's life returns to its familiar rhythm, centered on the quiet, predictable needs of Arthur Croft. The scene of her true victory is not in a boardroom, but in the sun-drenched rose garden of the Croft estate. It is a warm autumn afternoon. The air is calm, filled with the gentle, sensory perfume of late-blooming flowers and the drowsy hum of bees. Amara sits on a stone bench beside Arthur's wheelchair. She is not reading financial reports or safety manuals. She is reading aloud from a book of poetry by Mary Oliver, her voice a soft, melodic counterpoint to the rustle of the leaves. Arthur has been quiet all day, lost in one of the foggy spells that come and go with his condition. But as Amara reads a particular line about the resilience of nature, he stirs. He reaches out, his hand frail but determined, and gently pats hers. He turns his head, and for the first time in days, his eyes are completely clear, the fog gone. He looks at her, a deep and knowing intelligence shining through. "You were always the calm in the storm," he says. His voice is soft, but it holds the weight of absolute truth. There is no applause, there are no cameras, there is no one else to witness it. But this, right here, is the recognition that matters. It is the quiet, profound acknowledgement from the one person whose life and dignity were always her central focus. He saw her. He always had. Whose voice helped you heal when no one clapped. In this moment, her dignity is restored not by a corporate title or a fat check, but by the simple, human connection that was the source of her strength all along. She is not the hero of the 60th floor or the architect of the Vance Protocol. She smiles, a genuine, peaceful smile, and pats his hand in return. "I know, Arthur," she says softly. "I know." She is Amara Vance, caregiver. She has reclaimed the definition of herself, and it is more than enough. A few days later, Chloe visits the estate. She is no longer the timid, terrified assistant. She wears a new confidence like a well-tailored suit. She's been promoted to a junior project manager in the new operations division, a direct result of her clear-headed courage during the evacuation. She carries a slim briefcase. Amara meets her in the solarium. They sit and have tea, the atmosphere easy and familiar. "I wanted to thank you, Amara," Chloe says, her voice earnest. "You changed my life." "You were brave, Chloe," Amara replies simply. "You did the work." "I had good instructions," Chloe says with a smile. She opens her briefcase and pulls out not a legal document or a check, but a newly printed employee handbook. It's a thick, glossy volume smelling of fresh ink. She flips it open to a tabbed section. The chapter heading reads, "The Vance Protocol, a Guide to Human-Centered Crisis Response." She pushes it across the table. "I wanted you to see this," Chloe says. "It's not just a footnote, it's a whole chapter. They didn't just write down what you did, they wrote down how you did it." Amara reads the first page. It doesn't talk about heroics, it talks about observation, meticulous preparation, situational awareness, de-escalation through calm, steady communication. It credits her methodology. It praises her foresight, her calm, her attention to the human element in a crisis. It was recognition not just for the outcome, but for the quiet, invisible labor that made the outcome possible. Recognition done right, agree. "They're teaching it now," Chloe continues, her eyes shining. "To everyone. From the mailroom to the boardroom. My new boss, Elena Vance, she says you didn't just give them a new rule book. You gave them a new way to think." The door that Amara's quiet excellence had opened wasn't just for her. It had swung wide for Chloe, giving her a career she'd never imagined. And now, through this handbook, it was being held open for hundreds of others, teaching them that the most valuable skills aren't always the loudest. Chloe has one more thing to show her. She pulls a sleek company tablet from her briefcase and taps the screen to life. "The IT department just pushed this out to every employee's phone and desktop," she says, turning the tablet to face Amara. "It's the new emergency alert app, replaces the old broken system." On the screen is a clean, minimalist interface. In the center, where an app icon would be, is a simple, elegant line graphic. It is the unmistakable silhouette of an open book, its pages slightly curved with a thin elastic band stretched across its cover. It is her journal. Amara stares at the image, her journal. The repository of her private thoughts, her meticulous observations, the tool of her unseen, dismissed labor. The thing Julian had mistaken for a diary and warned her not to use. It was now the official, public symbol of safety and resilience for the entire multi-billion-dollar corporation. The design team said they wanted something that represented preparation and human knowledge, not just technology, Chloe explained softly. "Your little journal is now on every screen in the company." Did the object's meaning change for you too? It was no longer just a leather-bound book. It had transformed. It was a sigil of a new philosophy. It was a quiet promise that the knowledge held in the margins, the wisdom of the watchers and the workers, would now have a place at the center of the organization. Amara reaches out and traces the icon on the screen with her finger. A small, knowing smile touches her lips. She says nothing. She doesn't need to. The symbol speaks for her, a silent, enduring echo of her presence. She looks out the window at the quiet garden, feeling a sense of profound and peaceful closure, ready for whatever comes next. The closing image is not of Amara. Her story is complete. The legacy is what remains. The scene is a sterile, modern orientation room in the Croft Innovations Tower, 6 months later. A group of 20 new hires, diverse in age, ethnicity, and role, from software engineers to cafeteria staff, sit facing a large screen. On the screen is the now familiar icon of the open journal. A trainer stands before them, a warm, engaging woman in her 40s. She's clicking through a presentation. At many companies, the trainer says, her voice resonating with conviction, emergency protocols are a footnote in your handbook, something you forget until it's too late. Here, it's the first thing you learn. We call it the Vance Protocol. This is the tangible sign of continuity. The program is embedded in the corporate DNA, the first touchpoint for every new member of the organization. The trainer clicks to the final slide. It contains no graphics, only a single sentence in large, bold text. The protocol has dozens of steps and contingencies, which you'll learn over the next few days, she says, her eyes sweeping across the room, making contact with each new employee. But it begins with one simple guiding principle, a first rule that you must remember above all others. She gestures to the screen. The first rule of the Vance Protocol is simple, she states, her voice imbued with a quiet power that is instantly recognizable. Listen to the quietest voice in the room. That's where the solution will be. This is the understated line of hope. The camera slowly pulls back, showing the faces of the new hires. They are not looking at the screen anymore. They are looking at each other. The engineer is looking at the food service worker. The intern is looking at the veteran accountant. They are beginning to understand. They are being taught a new language of power, a new definition of expertise. Have you ever seen a room changed so completely, not by a shout, but by a whisper? The final shot is of the room as a whole, a new generation absorbing a legacy of quiet competence. There is a sense of stillness, of profound and lasting change. The dignity that Amara Vance always possessed has now been codified, taught, and woven into the very fabric of the institution she saved.